Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So you may be familiar with this book. It is quite renowned. Marcus Aurelius, if you did not know, was a Roman emperor. He was the dude in Gladiator who Joaquin murked. But he was also something of a thinker. And this book right here, the Meditations, may just be the most influential work of Stoic philosophy ever penned. Now, before we talk about Stoicism and before we talk about this work proper, it's important to note the differences in conceptualization of philosophy between now and then. What we think of as philosophy nowadays is really more akin to some kind of abstract pontificating, but not so for the people who lived in the time period in which this work was written. No, for them, philosophy meant something much more hands on, a guide to living, an approach to living life and navigating the world. And Marcus Aurelius really adhered quite strongly to the principles of Stoicism. Now, Stoicism is a form of philosophical system which prioritizes endurance, self discipline, and virtue as the highest aspirations in life, and which viewed the universe as being presided over by what is known as the logos, the overriding, presumably intelligent thing that governs all of creation. And Stoicism has had quite the influence throughout history, and as the forward to this edition of Meditations states, it works its way into the Bible as well. The phrase from the Bible, "In the beginning was the Word," kind of ties in with a Stoic cosmology. As well, Paul in the Bible also seems to demonstrate something of a Stoic mentality. But Stoicism stood in stark contrast with its rival system of thought, which was Epicureanism. Now, Epicureanism, I don't know that I would say that Epicureanism is necessarily synonymous with like hedonism. I think that may be an oversimplification and therefore disservice, but Epicureanism seemed to tend more towards gratification, whereas Stoicism was more geared around restraint. And Marcus Aurelius, like I said, really adhered to the principles of Stoicism, and he took this philosophy and used it as the guide for living his life. And the result was that he is, I think, kind of regarded as the creme de la creme of Roman emperors, or at least in terms of personal character. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that ancient Rome was something of a pervert's paradise. I mean, some of those emperors, like Caligula and Nero, did some stuff that would probably make Desaad blush. I mean, when you're the most powerful man in the world and that power isn't really checked by much and you have pretty much virtually anything you could want at your disposal to indulge in, I mean, things can get pretty gnarly. But Marcus Aurelius stands apart because he didn't. He did not wantonly indulge in whatever his desires tended towards. No, his character was marked by a great degree of self-control and a very kind of iron will. In this work here, the Meditations is, I would hesitate to even call this like a diary, because diaries generally still denote some form of narrative, and there is no narrative to this. Rather, I think this is more akin to memoranda, perhaps. This is just Marcus writing down his thoughts, putting down reminders to himself as to how to best approach life, how to best go about living in the world with other people. This was never meant to be published. In fact, he would probably be perhaps a little alarmed that it was and that other people are reading what was his most private thoughts. But it was published eventually, and it has since gone on to be highly influential. I'm serious. You can look this up on the internet, and you will see so many comments from people saying this book, just changed my life. It changed the direction of my life. It gave me a real guiding principle to live. And that's really great. I picked this up myself, as the sticker might indicate, for $1.99 in a Goodwill, and I went into this kind of, a little bit skeptical, as I think it's best to go into work such as this. Like, you see, when you go into any work of like philosophy or something that's meant to alter the way that you think and look at things, it's important to go in open minded, but not just to be sold on whatever you come across. You don't want to just be taken in by everything. And knowing how many people really tout this book and, swear by it, I went in, again, just kind of open minded, but also kind of skeptical, because I was like, it's really at its heart just one person's thoughts. It's not even really a work of proper philosophy, it's just one man's thoughts. And so I was like, what could he really, have put in here that's so life changing? But I have to say, I really do understand it now. I really do. This book is the product of a very acute mind, a mind who that really was geared toward introspection, and which was able to put down quite a bit of valuable and salient advice, I believe. Now, I will say this, I don't agree with everything in here. Some things I don't really think hold up uh, all that well. Like he says in here that no one does anything wrong deliberately. It's only through ignorance, basically, and I don't think that's even remotely true. I think the majority of wrong things in the world are done deliberately. As well, he remarks in here something like how nature never gives a person more than they can endure. Again, I don't really think that holds up so much. I think people uh, are often beset by things that they can't really endure. Hence, we have things like suicide. So I do want to say that I'm not just sold on Marcus's thoughts, hook, line, and sinker, as in just like lapping up every last word he wrote. No, again, it's important to approach things like this with a skepticism, but also with an open mind and being open to seeing their point of view. And Marcus, well, again, while I don't agree with everything in here, it really is a quite valuable work as to how to approach life, especially for people who, maybe don't know where to go in life, or, they're kind of adrift and they need some kind of guiding force in their life. This is quite valuable, and there are a lot worse things out there, I'll say. So on my phone here, I uh, put down some of the things in here that I liked the most, so I don't have to dog ear all the pages and hunt through it. So I'll read you some of the things um, in this work that I found the most valuable, that I think were quite acute and, again, salient. So at one point, Marcus says, the best revenge is not to be like that, not to be like, whatever it is you're wanting revenge against. I think that's bulletproof. It ties into kind of uh, some like biblical teachings about forgiveness and, being better than those who wrong you. Really good. And then he also says, it's the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone. What harms us is to persist in self deceit and ignorance. Again, that's golden. The truth, even if it hurts sometimes, it's always for the best, because it's better to live with a painful truth than a pleasant lie. And to feel affection for people, even when they make mistakes, is uniquely human. You can do it if you simply recognize that they're human too, that they act out of ignorance against their will, and that you'll both be dead before long. And above all, that they haven't really hurt you. They haven't diminished your ability to choose. One thing about Stoicism is such an emphasis on the concept of self and self improvement. And I love that last line, they haven't diminished your ability to choose. No matter what somebody does against you, they cannot fundamentally harm yourself, because that is within the realm of your own mind and your own soul, and you are the one that has sole dominion over that. And then uh, we also have this one right here. When people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it. If you understand that, you'll feel sympathy rather than outrage or anger. Your sense of good and evil may be the same as theirs or near it, in which case you have to excuse them. Or your sense of good and evil may differ from theirs, in which case they're misguided and deserve your compassion. Is that so hard? Again, I just think that's really valuable because even if someone does you a wrong, if you can understand why they did you that wrong, then you may find that there's more common ground between you than you thought. And if there isn't, then maybe it's because it's up to you to set them straight. And I also love this quote right here. It's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just try to escape your own, because at the end of the day, our own faults are really the only ones which we can escape from. And then we have this right here. And to lie is to blaspheme against it too, because nature means the nature of that which is, and that which is and that which is the case are closely linked, so that nature is synonymous with truth, the source of all true things. To lie deliberately is to blaspheme. The liar commits deceit and thus injustice, and likewise to lie without realizing it, because the involuntary liar disrupts the harmony of nature, its order. He is in conflict with the way the world is structured, as anyone is who deviates toward what is opposed to the truth, even against his will. Nature gave him the resources to distinguish between true and false, and he neglected them, and now he can't tell the difference. Again, that's just, I think that hits the nail on the head because of how important it is to adhere to, you know, what truly is in life. Because the truth, you can't do away with it. You can only mask it, but to mask it is to do disservice to it as well as to yourself by doing it. And then we have this quote right here, kind of leads into that. To do harm is to do yourself harm. To do an injustice is to do yourself an injustice. It degrades you. That's right. Any act of evil, though it may harm other people, it also harms you because it degrades your own character. And I just love that quote right here. And then we have this one right here. When you run up against someone else's shamelessness, ask yourself this: is a world without shamelessness possible? No. Then don't ask the impossible. People are what they are, and again, all you can really control is yourself at the end of the day. So just focus on you and let the rest go. And then we have this right here, which I also like. Someone despises me. That's their problem. Mine not to do or say anything despicable. Someone hates me. Their problem. Mine to be patient and cheerful with everyone, including them. Ready to show them their mistake. And you got to be the bigger person. If more people adhered to that, the world would be a vastly better place. And then this one might very well be my favorite right here. And this one right here, which says, it never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. That is just, that's bulletproof right there. And then this last one here. There's nothing more insufferable than people who boast about their own humility. Yes, I believe that is the case, isn't it? So overall, I really did get a lot out of meditation, more than I really thought that I would. Because you see this book hyped up a lot, and oftentimes the case with things that are hyped up is that they don't live up to the hype. But meditations really did. Now, again, I don't necessarily agree with every last thing that he said in here. Um, but by and large, I think the majority of this, the bulk of it, is quite valuable, really, to going about the living of one's life. And what I love about it so much is its emphasis on self improvement. Because, again, at the end of the day, yourself is really the only thing that you have any true control over. And so the guide, the Stoics' guide to living your best life is to focus on being the best you and not trying to control other people so much. And I think we live in a world nowadays filled with people which could who could really get some good out of hearing that, because I don't know if you've noticed, but to quote Thomas Sowell, we're approaching an age where no one is responsible for themselves, but everyone is responsible for everyone else. I mean, we see so many people out there, ready to change the world, but they don't really want to change themselves. They'd rather just command other people, and that's not going to work. Because again, at the end of the day, yourself is all that you can really command, and so I think this book really does hit a number of nails on the head. Actually, even if again there are certain things that I don't really think it's quite accurate with, but by and large, I really did like the Meditations. It is a very valuable work, and it can really give you a lot to chew on. So to rate Meditations, I don't really even know how to rate this because usually my criteria for rating books, um, the criteria that I usually use doesn't really apply to this. The writing, some of these thoughts are quite eloquently written, very aphoristic at times. So it's pretty good in terms of writing, I guess, or at least in this translation anyway. The characters, there are no characters in this. It's just, one man's mindset. Uh, so that doesn't apply. There is no story to this. It's just, random thoughts jotted down. But, so maybe I'll just have to refrain from actually assigning this a rating because this is a highly subjective thing. Some people might not, be so down with what Marcus is saying in here, but I think a great many people will, and I think this book could do a great many people a great deal of good. So I guess I won't assign this a letter rating, but I will say this: I could recommend this if you have not read the Meditations. You might want to give it a go. It really can give you a lot to ponder and raise some questions about how we live our lives as people and how we might go about doing that better. So yeah, the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Have you read Meditations? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, whether you have agreed or disagreed with anything I've said about it here today. And if you haven't read Meditations, like I said, you might want to give it a go. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. There really is. And as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.